Dobar dan. Ponovo. Evo, prošla je pauzica, pa se vraćamo kod gospodina Andreasa. Andreas, hello. I just wish wish you welcome here with us.
Thank you very much.
Give you what I hope we're gonna tell us something interesting about this new yeast and what this story about.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, can you hear me well?
Yes, I hear you perfectly. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I will just share my screen so we can start with the presentation.
Okay.
So, can you see?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So I will just leave it. Yeah. So I would like to share with you guys, to talk a bit one introduction about this new series of aromatic yeast, as we call it in AEB. And well, basically, as you can see right now on this first slide, I just want to give you some just a very short overview about flavor active compounds that this yeast released during fermentation. And these compounds, they're called thiols, and this is a quite popular topic, I would say, among the craft brewers. Especially those who are very into, hop forward beers. And so these compounds, thiols, are basically, as you can see on the slide, they are sulfur containing compounds, which they give you a particular flavor profiles. For instance, citrus, tropical flavors, berries, and passion fruits and different flavor profiles, and even sometimes like candy profiles. And these compounds, their precursors are sulfur-containing amino acids. Most of them, as you can see on the slide, like cysteine and glutathione, and some others, some aldehydes like hexanal. The intention that we wanted in AEB was to AEB has a very strong know-how in the wine industry. The company has been active in this industry in the last 60 years. So, well, the line of thought that we wanted is like how to use that amazing know-how that AEB has in the wine industry, but using it for brewing applications. So based on that, we wanted to use this particular yeast that they were actually developed for the wine industry, and to give us particular flavor profiles to wines, and especially for in the summers of wines that they can express more citrusy flavors and increase the drinkability of the product, and to have more interesting and more pleasant flavor profiles. So the way AEB R&D team developed those yeast is, as you can see on this slide, there was a selection criterion. And first there was analyzed the fermentation efficiency and the low volatile acidity. And then there were the aromatic characterization, which is one of the most important things, especially for the brewers, analytically, HPLC, GCMS, and more. And then the third part, which is a very important point that I'm gonna explain you during this presentation, is the low nitrogen substrate, or the low nitrogen demand that these yeast require in order to produce all these pleasant flavors. So it doesn't require high amount of nitrogen in the medium. And there were also flavor assessments, of course. These are this series. is, as you can see, there are 5. Actually, there are 6, but 5. These 5 are just give you specific, flavor profiles. As you can see, one is thermobrew citrus, give you citrus character. The nectar give you a candy and more yellow fruit profile, and the fragrance more floral, and the fruity tropical tones, notes, and the thermobrew berry, blackcurrant and raspberry. In terms of the dosage, is, as you can see on the right-hand side, is something between 25-50 grams per hecto, like an ale kind of brewing yeast. And with this specific temperature range of fermentation. The way how we were approach this, we were doing several trials from pilot plant to commercial brews, especially here where I'm based. I'm based in Sweden, in Stockholm, and what we did was to apply this yeast and for the production of modern lagers, and also using nutrients that also AB develop that I'm going to talk to you later on about them. And the intention was to create some new beers, a modern lager with this particular flavor profile, and at the same time, give them more this sophisticated character as a wine, but give you the drinkability of a beer. That was the first approach. And the second approach was how to use these particular properties in order to enhance these pleasant aromas that many brewers, they want to, like citrusy flavors, and for the production of low and alcohol-free beers, which is to me the most important message I want to share with you guys. This is just an example, the brewing protocol that we use for this modern lager style. This is the way how we started, and as you can see here in this protocol, you're familiar with the grain loads, with the mashing programs, the hop regime. But the most important I want to share with you here is the use of the yeast. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is Saccharomyces cerevisiae strains, but for wine production. So the attenuation of these yeast strains are lower than the regular brewing yeast in wort composition or in a wort medium. So we are talking about between 50 to 60%, when we know like brewing yeast depends on the yeast strains, can go 70, more than 80%. So if the brewer wants to produce a beer like regular alcoholic beer, it's advisable that there can be 2 alternatives. One, if you want to use just these strains, it's required that you add, in our case, our product called endozyme AGP 120, which is alpha glucosidase, or you can, or use the alpha glucosidase of your choice in order to break down the trisaccharides present in the wort. Now, the wine yeast, all these wine yeast do ferment maltose and basically disaccharides and monosaccharides, but they do not ferment trisaccharides like a maltodextrose. So this is a maltodextrose or the other trisaccharides that you want to break down in order to reach the final gravity, the alcohol, the ABV you're aiming for. Another combination, which is also you can use, is by using sequential pitching, using yeast blends with this one, and also with the brewing yeast, regular brewing yeast of your choice. This one I don't mention much because we do also several tests to see what kind of outcomes we're gonna get, and unfortunately there's a reduction of the aromatic profiles because the brewing yeast strains, they take over during the fermentation, So what we recommend is use this enzyme. And also I want to mention that, I mean, this approach that we want is, as the brewers now, they're exploring all different kind of microorganisms to explore and to new flavor profiles. It's the same we want to do it. This is with this series of yeast. So what we want to give to the brewers more possibilities how to get these flavor profiles. These pleasant flavor profiles are not just coming from the hops. So it would not replace this the flavor profile of the hops. The brewers will always use hops, but we just want to give them help them to boost this aroma hops, you know, or to explore more another compounds coming fermentation byproducts, you know, flavor active compounds coming from the fermentation. This is the profile. This is some examples that we did. Commercial scale. When I say commercial scale, I'm talking about 50 hectoliters and 100 hectoliters batches. So we chose for the Fermo brew fragrance, fruity and citrus, a lager, a modern lager, while for the nectar and the berry, we were brewing a red ale. And the reason was just because of the particular flavor profiles that this yeast provides. So, and in the case of the nectar and the berries, are not really the connotation of these profiles are not related to lagers. So not for pale lagers at least. So that's why we chose these two different beer styles. And so as you can see in this spider flavor wheel is that yeah, it's clear the citrus tones in the case of the Fermo brew citrus, and the fruity tones in the case the floral tones from the fragrance, and the fruity, well, in general all of them they're fruity. And in the case of the nectar and the berry, you can see these spicy notes and multi-float notes more pronounced in the berry one in comparison to the nectar. It's important here, I want to tell you, when you apply this yeast, is that you to keep an eye on your fermentation temperatures, because I don't know if you guys have experience by dealing with wine yeast producing beers, but if you exceed the fermentation temperature, so you over pitching, then the yeast will start producing more tones of more phenolics, like 4-vinyl guaiacol, you know, more tones like a wheat beers, and then turn out more like a wheat beer, which is not what you're looking for. So this is strongly advisable that you follow the dosage recommended and the temperature range recommended in order to get the tones that you are, these pleasant flavor profiles that you are looking for. Besides of that, the reason, this is the key message I want to share with you guys with these yeast strains, is that the advantage of these yeasts, that by the way, they're very unique. They were designed by AAB, so it's patented by AAB, is that this yeast, they do it through by hybridization, is that these yeasts, they give you very pleasant aroma profiles at the very early stage of the fermentation in comparison to regular brewing yeast. And the reason is also that it doesn't demand, these yeasts don't demand higher amount of nitrogen in the medium, and that makes totally sense, because these yeast, you know, from the regular medium is some grapes, and of course they're high. They're basically, we are talking about just presence of monosaccharides, and mainly, and some of these saccharides, you know, so they don't require high amount of nitrogen to produce these very pleasant compound styles. So taking advantage of that is for the brewer, how the brewer can take advantage of this, and how can use it in combination with their brewing processes. Another thing is that AAB is offering to the brewers is the nutrients. And this AAB has two different nutrients, as you can see. One called it Ferment Plus Fruity, and the other one is called Ferment Plus Fragrance. These nutrients were specifically created to express these flavors. In the case of the fruity, more tropical flavors, and in the case of the fragrance, more floral flavors. And the way it is as I mentioned in the first slide, is which is a fascinating subject, I guess, for the brewers, is that if you know what is the precursors, in this case amino acids, that of these thiols, of these very pleasant flavor active compounds, and then you can basically create from the beginning, you know, to start designing the profile of your products, in this case with the use of the nutrients. So you know what exactly the composition of the food is required for the yeast to produce these pleasant aromas. So you approach from both sides. You approach from the yeast strain itself, but also for their nutrient as well. And this is and another thing that I want to mention is about the low and alcohol-free beers. I mean, when we talk about, we say alcohol-free or non-alcoholic, talking about beers that produce that they have less than 0.5% ABV alcohol. And the way to approach it is by the way we did it. We did many trials, and the conclusive brewing method to use this yeast for the production of alcohol-free beer is that you produce your wort as regular for your alcohol-free beer, instead of using regular brewing yeast, as most of the brewers do, and these days they're using also some other yeast strains, as they call it, non-alcoholic yeast strains that are out in the market, that they just ferment the glucose, basically. In this case, as I mentioned earlier, these yeast, they do ferment also the saccharides, therefore also produce alcohol. But the most important is your strategy, your method, how you use them. So what we did is that you pitch this yeast at a regular fermentation temperature, let's say in a lager, about 12 degrees or the temperature of your choice. And what we find out is that these yeast do not produce alcohol so quickly as the brewing yeast at early stage. So we were monitoring the alcohol content day by day, or actually every 6 hours. And then we find out that they start producing alcohol in a substantial way after the 72 hours, after the third day. So what we did is we allowed the yeast to ferment at warmer temperatures in order that to allow them, the yeast, to produce this pleasant flavor profiles. And then when we are reaching 0.4 ABV, we just cold crush it, as you know, we just cool it down in order to deactivate the yeast, which is the common method that most of the brewers do, those who doesn't use the alcoholizers, and most of them, because they cannot afford this technology. So and we found a really interesting results, because we could get a really pleasant aromas which balance out this undesirable worthy flavor that everybody wants to avoid, and also to balance out the bitterness, because many brewers, when they produce these alcohol-free beers with this cold crush method, normally they increase a lot the bitterness of their beers, and they make it very unpleasant or not really with low drinkability. So we thought, how to balance out the bitterness from the hops, the sweetness of the wort, and with these flavor active compounds produced by this yeast. And on the top, also, like additional advice as a brewer is that you control your acidity, so you can balance out these four flavor factors. this is one commercial beer. This is from also the brewery I work for here in Sweden. And this is just one clear example. This is a commercial product that we've been selling more than a year now, and in nationwide in all over Sweden. And as you can see, this is the recipe. And just what I want to show you this, that that is we have a very tangible and successful product by using this yeast. So it's a tangible proof, that is that they work, and they work very well according to the strategy we develop. Another type of yeast from this Fermobrew series is the Fermobrew acid. And basically, this yeast is a non-Saccharomyces yeast. Actually, it's called Lanchensea thermotolerans. And basically, there is a yeast that it can, as you can read, it can produce high amount of lactic acid, also produce alcohol, but then very minor quantities. In wort medium, it's like 0.3. Basically, more the production of lactic acid, and also produce some very pleasant flavor active compounds, and in particular one called ethyl isobutyrate, which gave you this kind of fresh strawberry aroma. And so it's not just the production of lactic acid as a benefit for the brewer by using this yeast, but also these pleasant flavor active compounds. And so, but the main intention, of course, is for those brewers who want to produce sour beers and they want to avoid any, cross-contamination by using lactic acid bacteria or time-consuming processes like kettle souring. This is a very clean and very powerful choice that you can use, and very safe. And it works very, very well and straightforward. How to use it? This is a method that probably you guys you might use or you might heard. It's called sequential pitching. So first you pitch this yeast, the Fermobrew acid, and the temperature of your choice. Ideally more ale, just in order to not repress much their activity, and ale fermentation temperatures. But also can work at low temperatures. We've been also doing some tests, and even we can work with 13 degrees Celsius. And it makes the lactic acid, of course, in a slower rate, but still it can produce it. And so you pitch the yeast, allow the yeast that produce the lactic acid. You have to monitor the production of lactic acid and the pH that you are aiming for. The range that is between 3.2 to 3.8 if you want to make sour beers. As we know, the lowest pH of sour beers can go down to 3.2. At least it's for my experience, and also for what I have read. And then once you reach the pH, and then you add the brewing yeast of your choice. Now I need to say something very important in here. The advantage of this yeast is that this yeast will be deactivated by the brewing yeast by the second pitching of your brewing yeast of your choice, but it will not deactivate the sour yeast immediately. So as a brewer, you need to when you create your recipe, you need to define your strategy. For in our experience is that when you are doing this, using this Fermobrew acid yeast, this sour yeast, is that once you get around 0.3 pH above of the targeted pH you are aiming for, is at the moment when you have to add the brewing yeast. So because the sour yeast will still active and it will still reducing the pH, still producing lactic acid, but eventually we're gonna be stopped, by the brewing yeast. So this is something we learned from experience. And of course, the intention of adding the brewing yeast is that they produce the alcohol you're aiming for, producing more another flavor active compounds that you know from your brewing yeast, and obviously the CO2. Here is one example, another brewing protocol. And in this case, we produce a Flanders red ale with a capacity of 50 hectoliters. Again, you are familiar with the grain loads, mashing programs, boiling programs, and the most important to show you here is the use of this thermobrew acid. In our case, for this particular recipe, we were using the thermobrew acid and also our thermo ale AY3, which is a British ale yeast. And also we use another yeast nutrient that we use as more for general purposes. And we fermented at 90 degrees in this particular case for this specific beer style. And we reach the 3.8 around in the third day after 72 hours. And at that point, we pitch the ale brewing yeast to continue the fermentation and to finish the process at the same fermentation temperature. So the total fermentation time was around 21 days. The outcome is, as you can see in this flavor wheel, is of course is very prominent, the acidity, but also we got a very pleasant dry fruit tones, fruity flavors, and we were very happy of I would say close to this to the most famous Flanders red ale that we know. The iconic Flanders red ale, and which is a big success for us. And in terms of the recommended dosage, as you can see, is very dependent on the wort composition and of course on the fermentation temperature. So we define it between 50 to 100 grams per hectoliter. In my particular case, when I was brewing with this yeast, I was actually using less than 50. I was around 35. And then we increased it to 50 and we were happy with that. But then I got some feedback from colleagues from AB USA, from AB China, and they were not having the same results, and they were wondering why. And then they were increasing gradually the concentration, and then they found out that, yeah, they were getting the same results, but they needed a higher pitching rate. So everybody's happy and with this range and of pitching rate and the same range of fermentation temperatures. This is what I say, or what I say until now. It was just about this thermobrew series that we want to offer to the brewers, but also we just release another 2 core yeast that we incorporate in our portfolio, and this one is called Thermo Ale Bella B, and this is basically a Belgian Abbey yeast, so you can produce strong Belgian beers, and it gives you a very clean, delicate phenolic flavor. And we just make sure that our intention is to offer to the brewers another strong Belgian yeast with a different flavor profile in comparison to what you have in the market when it comes to dry active yeast. So we just wanted to give you another yeast that can give you a different profile, And the second one is it's called Thermo Ale de la Grange, and it's a Belgian saison yeast, and we definitely needed to have these 2 yeast, saison and Belgian strong ales as a core yeast, because of course it's a very common brewing yeast these days for the brewers. So yeah, these were needed, and together with our lagers and ale yeast that we already previously been offering to you. And yeah, that's it. I don't know if you have any questions. Hello?
Hi, Mr. Furukawa. No questions so far. So we're expecting our brewers and our partners and colleagues, maybe they will ask something at the Q&A, but so far there is nothing.
Okay. You need to
maybe you can
see
click online a little bit, and maybe if there is any questions later, you can provide an answer. So thank you.
Absolutely. Just I need to find, I'm not very familiar with Zoom. I just need to find myself.
It's okay.
So sorry.
It's for our session also the first time, so it's no problem. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, we will wait a little bit, and then we'll wait our colleague brewmaster from the Med Science from Hungary to catch up with us at 4 p.m. So stay online.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thanks very much. It was very, very interesting.